So are you ready or you need a few minutes?
I think it's loading now. Oops. I
I
do
can give you some, I can continue on and come back to you if you want.
Well, I have some stuff that needs to come out to you anyway, it's up to you.
Want to run through those
Yeah.
reports and then we'll move
Let's
back?
run through and then she can get
Go take your
settled.
time.
Our acceptance of reports, be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, acknowledges reviewing the following reports: attendance and enrollment, period 3, November 1 through 30, 2016, treasurer's report, including budget and revenue status, November 2016, and our treasurer's report, general fund, and school lunch fund, special aid fund, capital fund for November 2016. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Ed, second by Tom. Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Yeah, just wanted to follow up back on the transfers question from last
The budget
time.
transfer,
No, the transfers line within
the interfund transfer.
yes,
Yes.
correct, sorry, I'm phrasing it right.
I think the way that shows on the treasurer's report is it shows as a revenue when it comes into one fund, and it shows as a disbursement when it goes out of a fund. So
Right.
technically, when you net the two together, they should zero. Did you see something? I don't recall the initial conversation. I know there was something to look into. Was there something that made you think they didn't zero?
Well, so it looks like you have all the different funds listed,
Mm-hmm.
and then a total column. So if that were the case, wouldn't the total column be zero, or is it?
Yes,
because
but there's
they're
a
both-
line under receipts, a revenue, and under disbursement, so there's two lines.
Okay,
So if you add those two lines, they should zero out.
okay, I'll have to look into
So
it.
if you see something specific that doesn't look right to you, if you'll ask me that, I'm happy to
Okay.
research it.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Good to go, Jody?
It doesn't appear that way. I think we're
What
good.
happened, hey?
All you.
Alright. I just wanted to present, we received a presentation at our last DATEC meeting on ESSA from a woman who was one of the leaders in the group originally. So it was very informative, and we decided that it would be a good thing to present to everybody just to kind of catch you up on what's going on with it and the overview of it. This works. Okay. Here, I can, okay, yeah, if you don't mind. I gave you 4 handouts. There's a copy of the PowerPoint. There's also something called a note catcher, which really will sum things up if you kind of just jot some things down on that. There's also 2 other documents called Characteristics of Highly Effective Schools and one called High Concept Ideas. And I'll explain to you what those are about as we go through this. This is an overview of the ESSA Act. It started out in 1965 as ESSA, the Elementary and Secondary Act, and it was instituted by President Lyndon Baines Johnson. And basically it was the first, it's a civil rights law. And then in 2001, Nickelby, or NCLB, No Child Left Behind, became the ESSA Act. And then in 2016, Obama passed the ESSA Act, which is currently in effect right now. Really, a lot of it hasn't come into fruition yet, but it's coming. And that's how that rolled out. If you take a look at the notes that I gave you, there's the little note catcher. I'll let you know when you can write, if you want to do this, you can write down the little notes in the box. And basically, there's one that says overview background, and this is where you put these notes in. If you want to notate that, it was at ESEA in 1965, went to NCLB in 2001, and now we're in ESSA in 2016. It's a good place to put it. Yeah, you can. The ESSA's think tank is what has developed in Albany, and the lady who introduced this to us during our seminar, her name is Barbara Taglia, and she's part of the ESSA think tank. It's something that they developed, the commissioner developed, and there are 120 constituents on this board. They meet as a large group every month, and then they break out into small sessions on a more frequent basis. And they are providing the commissioner and the board with feedback on this, trying to make sure, she's trying to make sure that this time it doesn't appear to be a one-sided thing where the commissioner and the board are making all the decisions and there's no group feedback. So she's being very
You're
cognizant.
talking about the Board of Regents?
The Board of Regents, yes. So this board is right now advising, along with some other input from the community, which we'll also talk about. The think tank discusses these types of things, the standards, the assessments. They're very clear about the fact that these assessments will touch all students. Every different culture, language, ethnicity, they want to make sure that every student is counted. The participant rates, assessment times, so on. Switch. This is the funding, and you can, in the funding box, if you want to take any notes in here, these are the Title I funds, or the title funds that the ESEA originally instituted. Again, they want to make sure that everybody understands that these title funds will be focused on all kids. So they're broken out in a lot of different areas. The funding has changed a little bit. Things that they have removed, they've put back in block grants. So the funding will remain about the same amount. She made sure that she wanted us to know that that's not going to be a problem. But it will be a block grant now, and the state will have more power as to where to use those monies. It doesn't have, they won't be as specific anymore. So the big picture is, and I'm not going to read these to you, you can read them either here or on your paper, but the states have to follow the laws that were set by Congress. But there's a lot more flexibility in how they follow these laws under ESSA. So it's not going to be as tight as it was under No Child Left Behind. There'll be more room for them to make their own laws and rules through New York State. Okay. So the timeline is that some things took effect this year, and really the only one that I'm aware of that did take effect so far is the McKinney-Vento Act for the homeless students. Most of the stuff will go into effect in the 2017-18 school year. And then some will take effect even after that. New York State's not even filing their plan with the federal government until next fall. So until the plan is filed, really a lot of the state stuff is not going to go into effect. And even after that, there's a year that the state can use before they even begin to get, to start using, start being involved in ESSA. So they've got quite a while. This is not going to be something that happens tomorrow, maybe not even next year, maybe not even the year after, according to what they're learning up there. Next one. This is the methodology section of your notes. This is what ESSA says they have to do. The states have to identify the lowest 5% of the school, Title I schools in the state. They also have to identify all high schools that are graduating that do not graduate a third of the students or more. So if they have a graduation rate below 67%, they must be identified through the ESSA. In schools with groups that are continuously underperforming, along with the groups in the lowest 5%, they will have to be identified. So it's changed a little bit.
Do you want us to wait for questions at the end, or is this all right?
It's fine.
What does underperforming mean? How would the school district know that they're underperforming?
They're going to take what they do is they take the lowest 5% of the Title I schools, and if your subgroups are performing at or what are lower than they are, then that's my understanding, then you will be considered underperforming.
And is this how some of our schools were classified as that?
No, this is a totally different classification because New York State currently has 5%, 10%, those are the focus schools, the 10%, and above that, they just have schools that they identified for failing No Child Left Behind every year. and then after 3 years, they identify you. That's where this school has fallen in, this district has fallen in. So this school is very far away from being identified from the lowest 5%. That special ed subgroup, it's possible, but I think you're gonna see schools that are much lower than us even. So I'm not really sure how they're gonna put that into play.
Thank you.
It could be interesting. I think that's the big question, is nobody really knows at this point until they file that plan. And of course, remember, this is just what ESSA says they have to identify. So that's the federal government telling New York, you have to at least identify these things. But New York could come back and say, we're also going to continue to identify whatever, the lowest 10%, however they want to do it.
And that's where I think right now the local assistance plans are a New York State designation, that's not federal designation.
Right. So,
In a way, in essence, it's a way for the state to kind of give you a warning that, you know, some of these numbers aren't looking so good, but it's not a federal.
it's not the bottom of the
Gotcha.
barrel.
Thank you, yeah.
Next one.
Yep. This goes under the improvement plans, if you want to put a note there. Schools identified must have improvement plans, and they must be evidence and research-based, and that's the big key word that they're using in the federal government now, is they must be evidence-based. They will be monitored by the state, according to the federal government. So that was what the federal government said when Congress passed the law. Now, this new part has just been passed recently in November and December. 2 regulations came into effect, and this is John King's and the Board of Department of Education's portion. They're interpreting the laws for us and kind of pushing them a bit further, which some of the states are fighting back against them, saying the laws are there, you can't add any more, but that's to be seen as well. So just in November and December, they passed these final regulations, and the Department of Education defines what we can and cannot do at the state level. So they went through it, they looked at it, and they said, this is what you can and cannot do, and then we're adding this to it. And as I said, they were just passed. Go ahead and change it. Now, they have said that data can be averaged over a period of up to 3 years, which is interesting because we used to do it on a yearly basis. So you may see, we don't know again, that schools will not be identified every year. They may be identified every 3 years, which makes a little more sense because you can't identify a school and expect them to turn their school around in a year for the next identification. So if it's 3 years later, that would make a lot of sense, and it seems that they may be going in that direction. So again, they must be identified one time over 3 years. And this is a part that hurts some of the schools, not ours, but the states must use a 4-year grad rate now. They're not allowed to look at the 5-year or the 6-year graduation rate anymore. So that's, John King has added that part to the ESSA. Okay. The interventions, of course, when you're identified, the state must intervene, and the state has a lot of longitude here. They can come up with a way that they want to intervene into these districts, and that's the part that we don't know anything about. We're not sure what New York's going to do, what they're going to suggest, but that's in the plan that they're going to file next year, and it will say when our schools need to have interventions, this is what's going to take place. If you remember, No Child Left Behind, I think after it failed AYP the first 2 years, you had to bring in tutors and for all the students in Title I schools, and then after that you had to offer them an alternative school. There was like all these mandatory interventions that had to be done. This time it's going to be left up to the states to decide what will be done. But it must be evidence-based, again. It has to be evidence-based. They can't just kind of come up with some kooky idea nobody's ever thought of and throw it out there. Okay. This is where the other 2 documents I gave you came into place. The highly effective schools is what is being used to kind of guide these councils as they're doing this. And it looks, it's a very simple breakdown, really. If you look at the draft characteristics of the highly effective schools, there are 8 bullets, and each one of those bullets is a very simple thing. The first, basically the school, these are what they're saying highly qualified schools have. The school has, number 1 is strong leaders. Number 2 is a curriculum that's tied to standards, which everybody's working very hard on now. Number 3, ongoing professional development. Number 4, a rich and a rigorous climate. Number 5, culturally inclusive partnerships. Number 6, they have pathways to career in colleges. Number 7, there's cultural awareness. And number 8, they're culturally responsive. So that's what the Board of Regents is looking at and trying to infuse into this ESSA, into the ESSA law. The other one is the high concepts, ideas, and this is kind of Albany, or the Board of Education's pledge that they will, the first one is have challenging academic standards for all students. They will have methods for accountability. They will have they will support educators. They will support ENL, or ELL, the English language learners. It's really interesting that they broke this group out and specify, this is the only group that they specify in this, that they will support the English language learners. So I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of mandates coming down the pike on that one. And that they will support all students plus the ENL kids. And then they will support school improvement, and they will request input on how to go about doing all this. So those are the 2 guiding documents that the Board of Education is using, the Commissioner is using in Albany. The public comment section, this is really important to the Commissioner. She doesn't want to make the same mistakes that were made last time, so she's really trying to get stakeholder involvement. I've seen some of the stuff they put out there. It's complicated for people that aren't educational, experts. So I'm not really sure how well it works. If parents just feel free to jump on and comment, because you really have to understand the lingo to answer the questions. But there are ways. They are creating different ways for people to be involved in this.
And I actually went, I can't remember, I think it was in early November, mid-November, Dr. Corey hosted an evening at Ulster BOCES where it was administrators, there was a cross-section of the community that looked at the proposed changes and looked at elements of the SSA and gave feedback, and then they needed to turn that around, compile the feedback and turn around and send it to the state, and they were held throughout New York State.
Right.
That was the first round. There were supposed to be two meetings. There was going to be one in November and one in December, but then given the results of the election, the state has kind of slowed down in their response, just kind of waiting to see what happens next when the new administration is in place. But they have started that process. There is a website. I mean, they really have been pretty committed to trying to pull more people into the process.
And the website is here if you're interested in taking a look at it. And it does provide all these things on the website. It does explain everything that's going on. And there were surveys up, like I said, I think they're gone now, but we also took a survey in Daytag at one point that went directly to the state. So they have really tried to reach out to people. And last one. So the next step is that they hope by September of next year to submit a plan that everybody agrees on to the Board of Regents. And then they hope by the following month or two that that plan will then be submitted to the federal government for approval. So again, with the timeline, the federal government will not get this plan until about October, November of next year, so the 2017 to 2018 year. And then they have a year to even put that in place, New York State. So we may not see a lot of this until 2018, 19. And that's really when all the Common Core stuff was ready to kick in too. So, and again, people are real leery right now because they don't know what's gonna happen when the new president takes over. So, but this is what's going on right now, and I have some knowledge of it, but not all the answers. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The good thing is all our funding will still be there, and a little bit more, they say.
I read an article this morning or yesterday, it was pretty interesting, that all of this conversation about ESSA and federal involvement in education, it's actually about the federal funding of education is only about 9% of the funding overall for education, that the states make up the rest of that amount. And so even though they have a tremendous bully pulpit in a way, it really is affecting our title funds, which is a chunk for us, but a lot of it is state determined and comes from state funds as well. So it was interesting to me to know, as much as a conversation as we're having about this, and as much work as we're doing with this, it's really a fairly small amount of money overall.
I guess it's jumped through a lot of hoops, though.
A lot of hoops, yeah.
It really
For a
does.
small amount of money.
I mean, and that's some of the effort that some of the presidents have said. I mean, even Reagan, he wanted to eliminate the department because he just felt like it should go back to local control, state and local control.
Yes,
So
yes.
whether it that would eliminate the Title I funding.
Well, and that's the thing, I mean, these title funds are the funds that go to some of our neediest students who, I mean, both academically needy as well as financially needy, socially needy. So to lose that chunk of money
That would hurt.
could have a real
We
impact,
use it to support
a lot.
professional development,
So we get about $1 million, I think we talked about it.
Yeah, we
No.
don't get that much.
No.
So, you know, the 10% number is right around on there, and I'm thinking with the, section 611 and 619, a lot of that is flow through, it's not even money we get. We get it, we pay it out, but so we get closer, I'd say, to about 500,000 or 600,000. Yeah.
Still a lot of money.
And it's
Yeah,
earmarked.
it's still money, yes,
It's a chunk of
it's
change.
not,
It's very earmarked though right now. It's very specific, you know, this 25% must be spent on professional development and, you know, that's supposed to change. They're supposed to take that away and let the state decide to, you know, what regulations to put in force for the district. So that would be a nice thing to allow the districts to determine where the money's spent rather than earmarking it specifically for very specific things.
when you write the budget narrative, you're very restricted, if I'm not mistaken. You have to demonstrate that you're following their guidelines, so a little more flexibility would be welcome. Jody, I just wanted to let you know that when this was copied, some of the pages, I don't know if your original was back to back.
Yeah, they were back to back.
But we did.
They didn't print back to back?
No, so we're missing a
That's
couple
okay.
pages. So you just, yeah.
You can,
follow
we can email it to you, maybe we'll
Yeah,
just email you the whole application.
Yeah, that would be fine.
So
I'm
Jody,
still working out the kinks with the copying machines all over.
No, that's fine.
I
just
used the
wanted to
teacher
give
one, I
you-
made a mistake today, I guess.
This was very informative, thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Jody?
No, I really think that because of the new administration, things could change dramatically, and just even to be thinking about questions or trying to learn,
Well, I think the,
I just
I
so
think
up
the
in
thing
the
that
air.
could change is the regulations that were just put in effect in November with the 4% graduation rate and identification of 5%. He'd have to overturn the whole law.
Well,
I'm not sure,
possible.
I mean, I don't know, he might, but I think that was a bipartisan decision, the ESSA law, they were pretty happy with themselves. So he may have the Commissioner of Education back off a little.
I was gonna say, it'd be a lot more about enforcement
Yeah.
than anything else.
I don't think they'll repeal the law, I really don't, because there's no law there then anymore, it's gone completely. Because ESEA and No Child Left Behind are gone.
agree, we'll be going.
So I don't think they can pull the law without totally redoing it, and that's not gonna happen overnight. But you may see that some of the other restrictions are gone.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jody.
Very exciting.
Under curriculum and instruction, our principal's report, Joel.
It's actually getting warmer in here, I think.
And
Not sure, it might be that little heater.
I'm not thinking, I'm not feeling it.
me neither, Dad.
You're sitting by the window and that's where all the cold air tries to come in, so.
Very fresh over here.
Yeah. Well, the elementary school, I'm sure all the schools are in high mode right now, but it's a very exciting place. It is, the students are wrapping up this last week with lots of holiday cheer. A lot of parents are in and out. It's great to see. Many of the classrooms are still, they're still trying to get academics in around the holiday festivities, so that is good to see as well. I was in a kindergarten room today, and they were actively writing their their stories about the season. So the teachers are trying to keep curriculum going, but there is also an awful lot of sugar in the building.
And the red candy cane.
The candy
Kill
canes
me.
and, yeah, they are very hyped up. So on Friday, our annual school sing-along happens during the special periods of the day. So whenever the kids go to art, music, library, and phys ed, instead of them going to those classes for the day, they'll all assemble in the gym. So the whole first grade will be together. The tree will be there, all the teachers from those special areas, and they lead the children in sing-alongs. We have, holiday sing-alongs that is. We have the high school chorus and band coming to visit us on Friday. We also have the middle school band and chorus visiting us Friday as well. So we'll be fitting them in and around the day. If any of you are around, you are invited to stop by at any time. It's great to witness, even if it's just for a few minutes. So I highly encourage it. It puts you right in the mood. And that'll be on Friday, the day that school lets out. So it's really all, this was written on Friday. So if there's, I'm very excited that the technology teaching assistant position is hopefully going to come to fruition tonight. We had a great candidate pool this time around, and a quality candidate, and the candidate that was chosen. So we are excited to have that person start in January, and the teachers are chomping at the bit, ready to start signing up to utilize this person's services. So exciting. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dan will be here. He's, I know he's not gonna be able to be next, but he's doing the holiday play that got snowed out on Saturday at the middle school, but he will be here shortly, so. Peter?
I know that in all three buildings, staff and faculty, and those of us that are caring about the kids on a consistent basis, do different things to make sure that students who otherwise would not get quite as many presents as others get some wishes fulfilled. And that's standard throughout the three buildings. But one thing that was added and was unique, and I was sharing just the other evening with someone at the high school this year, faculty and staff paid $10 each in a donation. They were willing to do this, have their door decorated. And the money that was raised, two staff members, and I want to thank them publicly, Jim Moriarty and Lionel Heath, went to a local store and purchased better than a dozen coats, I won't give the actual number, and hats for students who could benefit from having those. They were delivered to the students today. And kids were really proud to get them, which was great too. So that happened through the guidance office. Just another special thing that was added this year. I want to thank the students and Ms. Grayback for the decorations. It's an annual endeavor to decorate the building. I know that some of those decorations look like they're made of recycled materials and maybe have been around for a while, but all of the wreaths that are in the A wing that you passed on the way back from the library, they were actually made by students this year. They're brand new decorations. Students spent several hours 2 Saturdays ago decorating the building, and it's appreciated. Students do not, contrary to what people expect when they're walking through, if they haven't been in this building before, they don't touch the decorations, and if they do, it's because the tape let loose and they're putting them back in place. So we're really fortunate that that's something that the kids appreciate in that way. You may have seen a little sign on the chair in the front hallway that says that we're gonna have a special guest on Friday morning. Did you happen to see it? Okay. There's a chair there that was constructed a couple of years ago for the color run champions to sit in and have their pictures taken. Mr. Manganello and Mr. Woody have promised that we will have an elf and a special visitor for photos Friday morning. The kids are super excited. And just that one little sign that was hung as a joke on that chair has prompted volunteers to play those roles. So our kids are super excited about it. That's a great thing as well. I don't want to bore you, but I want to share something I'm really excited about. I asked guidance if they could print out from our Naviance, which is our online portal students are using, and parents to make college application. And a list of all the schools that we know students have applied to at this point. So I'm gonna read for a little while. If you feel like I'm up here too long, just cut me off, okay? It's really exciting to me. West Virginia University, Temple, Montana State, NYU, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, University of Pittsburgh, Stony Brook, Washington, University of Washington, the Culinary Institute, Pratt, University of Louisville, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill again. Sorry for reading that twice. Baruch, Concordia University, Irvine, California, University of Kentucky, Roger Williams, Providence, St. Peter's, Brigham Young University, and Brigham Young, Idaho. Drexel, University of Rhode Island, Bucknell, Lehigh, Clarkson, Northeastern, New York Institute of Technology, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, Rochester Institute of Technology, Stevens Institute of Technology, Tufts, United States Military Academy, University of Vermont, Drexel, FIT, Ohio State University, Columbia, Cooper Union, Cornell, Harvard, Lehigh, Princeton, Yale, Amherst, Princeton, Swarthmore, Tufts, Vassar, Bowdoin, Colby, Haverford, University of Pennsylvania, Washington and Lee, University of Texas, Appalachian, Providence, Tulane, Williams, University of Massachusetts Amherst, University of New England, University of New Hampshire at Durham, Quinnipiac, Barry, Eckerd, University of North Carolina, University of Tampa, Bates, Bowdoin, Brandeis, Hamilton, Hobart and William Smith Colleges, Middlebury, Babson, Clemson, Franklin Pierce, Furman, University of Hartford, Iona, Marist, St. Leo, University of Scranton, Seton Hall, Siena, Hampton, Howard, Bentley, Delaware, Fairfield, St. Lawrence, Villanova, Fordham, Sacred Heart, Pratt, Syracuse, Clarkson, Stevens, Penn State, Rutgers, Brown, BU, UConn, Cornell, Macaulay Honors College. The list goes on, but I was so excited to see this list. These aren't acceptances, but these are applications. And the thing that's very exciting to me is our students believe these are real opportunities for them, and they are. We have SUNYs on this list, and I'll share this list with you at some point in the near future, once it's a little refined. But kids have applied to way more than 20 states. So there's a little shift and a little trend. I do believe this is a unique and wonderful group of seniors, there's 121 of them at this point. But I also think it's part of the trend here in Highland, and I think it's an exciting one.
Peter, I do want to say that I did have the pleasure of going to the concert in high school. That's the only one I was listening to. It was phenomenal, and their last number was amazing. The one that the chorus did with the band was very good. Really was. It was very good.
Thank you for pointing that out. Katie, I just wrote a list of many of the colleges, not all,
Oh, yeah.
that the seniors have applied to.
Did you tell them about the one student who got accepted?
I will do that. Well, you go ahead.
Oh, yeah, we had a student to get accepted into UPenn, so,
Nice.
yep, we were really excited for her and.
And a student also, not to compare, but a student received a 4-year scholarship to Vassar, which is very good.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so, you know, our acceptance rate is wonderful as well, but hopefully that excited you half as much as it excited me. It's the outcome of what we're all doing. So that's based on 98 students applying out of 121, a lot of early decision, that sort of thing, so more good news to come.
Thank you, Peter. Patrick?
Recently, we had our district-wide PBIS meeting. It's kind of where we get all the coaches together. And it's a chance for us to share, so we find out what's going on in the other buildings. I've been involved in these meetings for a couple of years. This was probably one of the best instances of sharing and excitement and people taking notes of what the other buildings are doing. We had a long talk about branching out of our schools, and with the help of Doug, we're really going to be trying to push some of our activities that we have going on throughout the district to our transportation. So, you know, if we have a spirit day in the elementary school, it's not starting when they get into the school, it's starting when they get on the bus. And some of the bus drivers participating in sports day or blue and gold day. So increasing our communication there, and promoting all these things we're doing throughout the district and not just within the schools. We started our focus review, so we had our introductory meeting with our regional associate 2 weeks ago. Right now, we're in the monitoring phase, so we're in a 2-week phase of a select group of students that we're monitoring their services to ensure that they're getting them. And then in January is when we're gonna be having some classroom visits from our regional associate to take a look at some of our programs. And then at some point after that, we'll meet with her and kind of go over our results from it.
Any questions for Patrick? Thank you. Jody?
Well, I was so excited about my presentation, I forgot to copy but I think I remember most of it. The first thing that I started off, I don't have all these meetings, I just have knowledge to bring to you. The first thing that I talked about was, they made a decision through the ESSA again that any of our students that opt out of the test will be counted as not proficient, and that's going to do us serious harm when we see our scores. So again, we may not see this for a couple of years, and maybe by then people will be opting in again, but the federal government is not wavering at all on that, does not care about New York State's problem, and I think it's gonna be New Jersey's problem this year and some others. They said get the kids to take the test, it has to be done, so that's their way of making sure that New York State works harder to get the kids to take the test. The other thing that I gave you were some graphs. I had gone through the Regents exams for the high school, and I put them in your reports. The high school is, and Pete and I are working on this, we're looking closely at a few things, but they're right exactly where they're supposed to be in almost every regions, right in the middle of the trend. We are looking to see why, who is it? I forgot.
I think you're referring to geometry.
No, not geometry, the school. Aniora. We are looking to see why we are in a similar economic disadvantage rate as they are, but they are scoring significantly higher than we are. We're looking at that, but Pete has informed me that they have a huge budget as well, so.
53.2 million.
So we haven't really, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but,
Reservoir.
yeah.
I have another hunch also, which I'll share,
Yeah.
I feel confident
But I'm not
about
there.
it. We have many, many more students who are taking geometry relative to our student population by percentage. So it seems as though we had over 115 tests taken in geometry last year, and they had as few as 56, and they're not that much smaller than us. We have more students attempting, and we have fewer by percentage succeeding, greater in number succeeding.
You know,
So there's a trade-off though.
yeah,
We're
there
looking
is,
at
and there's other ways that districts can play games with it, there really are. I mean, you can, if you really are concerned with what you look like on paper, you'll stop your kids from taking the Regents exam if they don't do very well in the class and you don't feel they're going to score high enough, you tell them you can't take the Regents exam this year.
That's not where we are.
He does not do this. Every kid takes that Regents exam because it's considered, you know, look, if they're not gonna do great this time, they're gonna take it, get some experience, and then next time they're gonna, you know, and that's why when you look at the school report card for Highland High School, when you look at our 4-year cohort rates for ELA and math, they're very high, extremely high, because Pete encourages those students to keep taking those tests over and over again until they get the highest score possible. You know, other districts do it in different ways, so we really have to delve into that and look, but the one thing I can tell you is that they're right where they're expected to be. Is that good enough? Not for everybody, so I mean, sure, there's work that can be done, but they're not lower than they're supposed to be. You know, and in a couple of areas in global, they're actually performing really high. They outperformed everybody except New Paltz. So That's a very strong area for the school. There's a couple of issues, and like I said, we continue to work on them and ask questions and see what we can do.
You're talking about high school level
High school,
right now.
that, it's just the regions
Okay.
for that. And of course, the middle school algebra and living environment is included in that, but those kids almost always score sky high on those tests because they're so advanced, so. But yes, we continue to discuss that and we will continue. What else I can report? I mean, right now, I'm looking at I've just almost finished putting in all the grades for the math benchmark for elementary school into a chart to look and see by grade level where the kids are missing, where they're performing really high. Taking a look at subgroups, breaking them down to find out, are our special ed performing much lower, things like that, looking at the all student subgroup. And Joel and I are gonna talk about that tomorrow actually, and then we'll decide how we're gonna present it to the teachers and get them involved with data. And then in middle school, we actually had he's not here, I don't wanna ruin his surprise, we had a tremendous meeting today. We've been really looking at their math results, as you're aware that they're one of the ones that are often caught by the state for performing low with special ed, and probably if they continue to do this year, they may actually get a couple more. So he's really Dan's really trying to turn around that math department, and we had like an aha today, and we were both so excited, and but I think he's gonna go in the way of having the teachers write the tests for the unit exams and the final exam over this year and over the summer, so that they're ready to go next year. So the teachers are actually, they're broken into units, and they know exactly what's gonna be on that, exam, and that those kids, once we take those results and we put it in a data file, we're gonna know which kids, perhaps what teachers, are missing, so that we can really figure out, what's happening here. So, and that's really exciting because it's really gonna be a valuable piece of data. So, there's a lot of good work going on. Dan is very excited, so when he gets here, I'm sure he's gonna have a lot to tell you. Do you have any other questions?
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I'm sorry, I send you a lot of charts, so your reports are pretty long for me, and I apologize for that, but I figured about making them, you guys may be interested in them as well, so.
No problem, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Jody.
Okay, we'll do our approval on Committee on Special Education minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Special Education according to the minutes of the CSE meetings of November 10th, 14th, 16th, 18th, 21st, and December 7th. CSE, the amendment agreement, no meetings of November 15th, 19th, 29th, along with December 2nd. And the amendment, no meeting transferred November 23rd, authorizes the arrangements of such student special education programs and services. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Tom, second by Deb. Discussion, anything, all those in favor? Opposed? So carried. Approval of Committee on Preschool Special Education, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Preschool Special Education according to the minutes of the November 14th, 16th, along with December 7th, and amendment, no meeting, November 8th and 21st, authorizes the arrangements for such student special education programs and services. Have a motion, please. Motion by Ed, second by Deb. Discussion? Nothing? All in favor? Opposed? So carried. Personnel, would you like to do personnel as a block from A through G? And if you have any specific questions or concerns, you can ask them. Good with that? There is a correction.
Yes.
Alan Benson on varsity boys tennis head coach. That's a typo. It's 2,433, not 3,433.
It's two,
Wait.
Question I
No,
have now.
wait.
it's $2,343. That's what was in the teacher's contract.
2003.
That's my fault for that getting in there at the
Yeah, I'm
34.
sorry, yeah. what-
2343 would be the correct.
2343 is the correct one. In regards to, Frank, while you're here, the spring coaching appointments. Currently, do you have signups for these positions as right now, or they're all?
These positions?
Yeah,
These positions,
these teams, I'm sorry.
these coaching positions were advertised back in May and June.
Right.
And then we didn't have them all filled, but everything was advertised about a month and a half ago. And then we interviewed everybody here that was not interviewed, that hasn't coached before. And right now, there's two positions, there's JV softball and modified softball, which we still need to fill.
But you're not doing student signups yet?
Student signups? No.
No.
We're gonna do that.
You're asking.
I think that's what it's.
Yeah, that was my.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, that sign for that will be, probably the first week in February, month before the season starts.
Anyone have any other questions?
Is this for questions on these?
On
So
any
you wanna
of
wait
the
for
block
discussion?
agenda?
For the teaching assistant, I think they may mention that's for the IT, so it's the replacement of the position that was.
Deborah Myata,
Okay.
last year, yes.
An open.
And we have not, we went through a round of interviews and we didn't really find anyone who had the background. I think, I don't know if I mentioned it in my update to you, but the candidate being recommended has several different credentials for teaching from the state of Texas, but there's no reciprocity for that in New York. So she has a nice set of instructional backgrounds, as well as being bilingual, as well as having had experience in doing some real maintenance types of things with technology. Not that that's what we're expecting her to do, but she will be able to provide some basic guidance to staff with their devices, as well as with the instructional pieces. So I think she'll make a good fit for that position.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Yeah, we need a motion
Can I get a motion?
for block.
A motion made by Mike, the second by Heather. Now all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have one on varsity girls golf head coach. Do my voting to that. All motion carried. Okay, moving on. Student rep.
All right, so, we haven't had much going on, but we had our winter concerts, so all the grade levels participated in that. The music booster t-shirts were handed out to the students. We had our Maui UN book fair this Sunday, and, it went well. We had a bunch of people show up. We had caroling sing-alongs, and we had crafts and all kinds of things like that. And then we had our Triumph students go caroling at the nursing home today.
Caitlin, when will you find out how successful you were on Sunday?
We had until I think the 26th
Oh,
for
there's
our
still,
online sales.
oh, okay, great.
So we'll find out officially if anybody went online, so we'll find out probably on the
Do
26th.
you know the code by heart, so the board members who might still be shopping could?
I do not know.
Okay, we'll get it for
But
you.
I can get it for you guys.
Any questions for Caitlin?
I was gonna say,
I read in the paper that you want to be permanent colleges.
Yes, yep.
Boy, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm looking at a few options right now for college.
Have you applied anywhere yet?
I found out I got into Siena, and I have $25,000 Albany College of Pharmacy, and if I go there, I'll be a pharmaceutical science major. There's a lot going on.
You are an amazing young person.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Great, thank you. Dan, you're up. Already, huh?
I just came from the middle school musical, The Wishing Tree. It was so cute, it was so well done. The kids did just a great job. If you go back to middle school and you remember standing up, trying to get up and stand in front of people and singing and doing a little dancing, yeah, I give them so much credit because they did a really great job. A couple things that I wanted to talk about. Under inquiry-based learning, I actually got into a debate, a really good educational debate with a teacher on last week, and we've been talking a little bit how to move more towards inquiry-based and trying some things. And it ended up to the place where she came back to my office and we continued debate on Friday at 3:30 after everybody had left. And where we ended up was that I'm helping her teach a class, second period, every day for the next week or so, so we can try some things out, because neither one of us are really sure, and what we decided to do was do an inquiry-based learning on how to get that, pull that off. So we're working together on doing it, and it's really exciting. We started it today, and what we're doing, it's a social studies class. The challenge to the kids is find your location and create a county that has the best chance of survival in the new world. We didn't give them anything except here's the tools that you have coming with you and the supplies. You have to figure out the rest yourself. And we opened up with some ideas like, come up with a list of questions that you have. Some of the kids went, what are the computers for at our desk? Right? Great question, right? And they answered their own questions. Oh, we have to research this, don't we? Got it, right? And then we were going around, and as they were starting to research, I would go around and just ask them, what's your plan? And instead of telling them, look at this map and find what the best natural resources are, the questions are, what's your plan to pull this off? And they were like, well, they're going to make a list of this, and we're going to do this, and then we're going to talk about all the different pieces and put it together. And you can just see the engagement and the things going on in a really great way. It's really fantastic stuff. So it's just really fun to be involved with that. Under mathematics, I'm really excited. I spent some time with Jody today, and we talked more about what I wrote here and about developing tests that will look really as similar as possible to state tests, so that when kids opt out, we'll have really good information on the rigor. What we're trying to do is get to a place where we ensure the rigor of our unit test is really similar to the rigor of the state tests, and that those tests are in place so they don't change. That's our goal of the instruction, right, in the long run. So we're hoping by the end of this year to have the final exam in place and then some unit tests. So in the next school year, we would have all those unit tests in place in the final. So we would have really, really solid information on how the kids were progressing towards those standards. Because that's all standards-based assessment.
Is this in each grade level?
Yes, this will be in each grade level. And I talked with Sarah today, and there's money through our LAP plan to provide time to those teachers after school sessions to really get that developed.
Curriculum development.
Yeah, further. And it's really the curriculum developed from the end of writing the test, and then the test, if it's a really well-written test, it drives our instruction, right? It's not teaching to the test because we still have to get through thinking process. We still have to get, really deeply understand those standards.
Teaching to the standard.
It's teaching to the standard is what it is. Yeah, thank you. That's a really great way to put it.
There was some thought about bringing in a ninth grade teacher and a fifth grade teacher as well into the groups to help develop and thinking about.
And we have math cabinet meeting, our next quarterly math cabinet of the whole district next month. I think the 11th, sticks in my head. So that'll be a topic of
It's
conversation.
another topic of conversation there. So that's it. Any questions?
That sounds great.
No?
Thanks, Dan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, under business and operations, health and welfare contract, Wappinger Central School District. Be it resolved, the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools approve the 2016-17 health and welfare contract for 2 students at a cost of $703.91 per student, for a total of $1,407.82 with the Wappinger Central School District, and authorize the Board President and District Clerk to execute the contract. Have a motion, please. Motion by Ed, second by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. Budget transfer, be it resolved, the Board of Education, by recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the following budget transfer for the 2016-17 school year. Budget transfer number 5248 for $152,500. Have a motion, please. Motion by Tom, second by Sue. Discussion?
The only question that I have, if we're going to pay this off, do you project it will not, we won't be looking to override the cap? That's, I'm always hesitant to get rid of
Yeah.
excess money.
I understand. This is a one-time expenditure. We do not know what state revenue we're gonna get next year, so I don't feel that I can
See, that's-
correlate that to this.
See, that's why I'm nervous
I know,
to get
but-
rid of money.
I just wanna say one thing, which I did not put in that, and I quantified this, earlier today. I have never been in a district where I've done 8 or 9 borrowings in one school year. That is, I don't know any of my colleagues that have done that, but most of them have also not had borrowings resulting from a public library. So every time we borrow money, it impacts our debt threshold, whether it's our debt or not. The law requires us to borrow money for the library. We also have these bans that we continue to get each year when we buy school buses. What I looked at, and this is so significant in my opinion, is if that $17.5 million that we're gonna eventually turn from short-term borrowings or bans into serial bonds, if we impact the way I'll use it in the comparison of an individual. If the school's credit rating, a 700 or 800 for an individual is great, drops a little bit because we've done a lot of borrowing, and we have to borrow, we've all probably borrowed to buy a car, 1% higher, that $17.5 million could be $1.5 million.
Right, I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying, but it's.
I understand your
it's just,
correlation and your.
To pay off something and then to say, oops, we need money, I would think that could impact us as well.
And that, I think, taking that one step further, Sue, the conversation that, I'm sorry, Tom, did you have?
No, sorry.
No, I didn't realize I was interrupting.
No, go right ahead.
That, we've talked about, how much fund balance we are putting towards the subsequent years, as revenue. And if, let's say we were to decide not to approve the transfer, and we're going to hold it in abeyance in the fact, if we don't get state aid, then we're just going to take that 1 point whatever million it is and increase it by this one shot amount of money. So I think, we weighing all the impact of additional debt, and the impact of possibly additional fund balance going towards the budget. It's hard to quantify that today because we don't have any information yet about where we're headed with the 2017-18 year budget.
I agree with you, Sue. That was one of the concerns when I was reading it, just because I know last year when we went through the budget cycle, how much money we did pull forward or pull from the previous year, and the conversations that only makes next year even worse. And there are some things that are running out that we relied on this year that we won't be able to rely on in the future. And that's where my concern comes in, and I know hindsight's 20/20, and we don't know that right now. But that is certainly, I agree with your concerns.
Well, this budget transfer is to pay something off sooner rather than later.
Right, normally what we would do is it's in our general fund budget to pay a portion of it off and to get a new band. So we would be deferring additional debt. And I completely understand what you're both saying, but the more we defer, the harder those next years are. So based on some positive financial indicators this year, I just thought, and it's a really small amount. Most of our bands are about $500,000. The one this year for the new school buses will be almost $1 million. It's not a.
Is this the last, from what I'm reading, this is the last year of this ban, or would it be?
This would be the third year that we would be getting the third year of borrowing. Historically, we do 5 years of borrowing, worst case scenario. Ideally, you pay it off sooner. Yeah, the
But
smaller,
if you went the normal course with this, so
you would
over
do
the
5 years, yes.
So it would be, okay.
Any other discussion?
Louise, you had said about doing so many borrowings, are they because of the amount of bands that we have?
Yes.
And there's no way you can get them at some point to be
So the
the
problem
same
is,
volume?
when you get a ban, you need to renew it. You need to have a new issuance within the exact same date of the maturity.
Right.
So because we don't know exactly when our new buses come in, we can't, you know, if the buses come in early and they're about a month, we can line them up together. But if our buses come in later, like for example, we have some of our buses from the Mayville coming in now, but they're not all gonna be here. Or it will be unlikely they will all be here by the time we would need
Yeah,
a
to
new
do all at
issuance.
once.
Yeah.
And that would be like to term it out. Right,
What-
that's what we're doing, when the bus comes in, you term it out into a loan.
5 years,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
5 years.
okay.
Right.
So what would be a normal, like you said, 9 is very high, I agree with that. What would be more in the realm of normal?
Well,
I'm just thinking, because if you think buses, like, we're
Yeah.
trying to stay on a good route
Yeah,
with
and
buses,
perfect-
and if it's a
Listen,
5-year,
we
you're
took
doing at
the
least
fleet.
5.
We took the fleet,
Yeah.
and it really comes out to around 7 buses per year if you're really owning
Yeah,
your
Absolutely.
replenishment schedule.
absolutely.
I
So
mean,
if
that's
you
just the
think that's
numbers.
on, yeah.
So if you're not doing capital construction and you're not having a public library do capital construction, I would say you might have at the most 4 a year. You know, because if you pay it off every 5 years, you have a rolling 4 if you do new buses every year.
There's just a lot
Right,
of
and that's
capital
kinda
Just
type
so
work.
happens that the
Yeah.
library is borrowing at the same time
Same
we
time
are.
we are.
Right.
And that counts towards our credit rating, because we have to do the borrowing on every.
Now, how does that work? Are we notified that we would be on watch? Or is that, I don't know how schools work versus like a.
Well, we haven't, Moody's regulates our credit rating. I actually, you know, I guess I could ask Bernie Donegan that. I don't know the answer. I just know that it's odd to have this many borrowings in any one year.
Right, I was
It's
just
also
wondering the
because of the
process
way
of that.
we phased it, by the way. If we didn't phase it and we did it all as one phase, we could have got one borrowing and then rolled it right into a serial bond.
With capital projects.
Right, but you know, for a variety of reasons, this
We
is what
did.
works for
Yep.
Highland and the library.
Stay with it, all these are value add to the community. What are you gonna do?
Absolutely,
That's our
they are,
strategy,
yeah.
and bands are, it's a crescendo type of year, but
Anybody else? All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. Superintendent's comments?
Just to piggyback on some of the things that you've already heard this evening, Sarah and I, or Sarah or I, have been attending the holiday concerts. They all have been very well done, and our newest addition to our music department had his debut at the elementary school concert last night and did an outstanding job. I have not seen that auditorium that full, not necessarily due to the new music teacher, but by 6:05, there wasn't a place to sit. It was packed, yes, it was great. It was a good turnout at all 4 of them. Compliments to the middle school students and their director. They did an absolutely outstanding job with the Giving Tree, and it's a wonderful holiday message. So if you do get a chance to see it at the, doing it at the elementary school?
Yes, and we're doing it for the 6th grade Thursday morning.
That's
If
right.
you have a time, Dan, if you email me, I'll let the board members
Yeah.
know. I know you're all very busy, but they really, the kids did a great job. Goodness, let's see, we have had some of our support services meetings that you've heard about. We're working on how to optimize our going out to bid in this increasingly difficult bidding climate. And I'm glad to be back, and we'll be starting the new, the budget process in a very short time, and we're all awaiting to see what that's going to entail this year. And just so you know, I was contacted by Sharon Flanagan of the New Paltz Times, I think it's the paper that she's going to be writing the article for, but she contacts myself and Maria Rice, and I don't know who else in the area, to just to ask us what are our challenges, what are our plans to face them, what are the things that we were excited about that happened in the previous year. So that article should be coming out and within the next couple of weeks, I think. So I don't think there's any surprises in there for you. I hope not. I hope I didn't say anything that you're not aware of.
Any questions for Deborah? Pat?
I don't really have a lot. There's been, I think trying to support the buildings in a busy time of year. We've been doing a lot with that. Continuing work with Teachers College and working with Jody, looking at the benchmark assessments at the elementary school, and really thinking about our plan for how to move that forward. So that's about it.
Any questions for Sarah?
Just wanted to mention that the report that we received from Quest and the test results have been posted on our front page of the district website. And so if anybody, if you get questions, Beth, please feel free to direct people to myself. But yes, it's there, and you have the proposal from the environmental firm to continue their work on the agenda.
And I have to say, as of right now, I think I had one parent phone call from, we had one last week, and it was very good conversations that we had with the teachers, wasn't it?
So other than antibacterial soap and,
Well, I mean, they're now looking to do the full environmental quality
okay,
response. That was just to the
So,
initial,
all right.
all that was going on.
Okay, so
Elementary school.
to be determined.
Once they do
Okay.
all three buildings, part of that process will be recommendations on how to improve, how we can all work together to improve our indoor environment. And it may be that, it may be that reducing some of those chemicals that we release into the classroom unwittingly would be part of that recommendation.
We had a big problem in our building, we don't turn out like this, but folks started bringing in those little scent sticks.
Oh, yeah,
We had to ban them.
that's right, shut that right down.
That was,
Depending on your tastes.
Ah.
Scent.
Okay, under Board of Education, new business, policy 4100, organizational chart. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, approves policy 4100 as presented to the board at this meeting. Can I have a motion, please? Second by discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. Title I Foster Care Transportation Designate Contact Person. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, designates Patrick Boyd, Director of Pupil Personnel Services, as foster care point of contact person to work collaboratively with the representatives from the local Department of Social Services. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Ed. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried.
I just wanna make one comment about this, one for the minutes, it should be interim, correct? And just for the board's awareness that we live in this world where we are told there will be no more unfunded mandates. This is part of new legislation that, covers foster children who are placed in a school district, through the system, that, foster care. And if that student wants to go back to the school district where they were before they were placed in foster care, this is surrounding the issue of transporting that student, and there are three options. The Department of Social Services can agree that they're going to pay for the cost. The district and the Department of Social Service will share the cost, or the district pays.
And who decides?
Well, that's yet to be determined, that has to be, I think, negotiated between the DSS and the school district, but I have a feeling we know how it's going to turn out. That it's going to end up being our responsibility, so just trying to keep track of the things that are, I'm making a list for my meeting with the legislators coming up.
What becomes, is there any designated legal recourse?
Not that I've seen yet in the regulations, but it hasn't been completely fleshed out yet. I was prompted to go to a portal on the State Education Department website to answer questions that I don't have answers to yet. So, seriously, if they want to know what we've determined, well, we have not yet had conversation with DSS. I don't even know who their point person is in this process yet, so just something for you to be aware of.
But many students in that situation.
I'm sorry?
We have many students in that situation.
To my knowledge, we have some homeless students that might be in that situation, but not foster care at this point in time that I know of, and I'll
Well, it would be a
double check with them.
fluctuating number, I mean, it's a little bit like homeless, it could be we have several at one point and none at another point.
I guess another way, is this case specific right now, or is this just general policy and you're putting it in place? Fair enough.
So that was going to be my question. A homeless child, or a foster care child is not necessarily defined as a homeless child.
That's correct, but
So
some of
there's
them,
two different designations.
some of the McKinney-Vento provisions
Crossover.
Okay.
for homeless students are now being applied to students who find themselves in a foster
Okay.
situation, with regard to being able to return to their district of origin while they're in foster care.
Is there ever a conversation about what the child wants? There is.
Yes, definitely.
Because, just a picture of a child living, let's say, in a foster care area in Ellenville, but they're originating in Highland, to be commuting every day to Highland, I'm really hoping that the child would play a part in this decision.
We would hope so as well, that there's a conversation around that request happens at the family level, and it's something that the child wants and understands that they're going to be on the bus for an inordinate amount of time, and may not have the opportunity to stay after school and
But you said probably a transitionary thing that would occur with social services, given that if the child is in foster care because of an unfortunate series of events, they may need a stabilizing factor.
So hopefully it's a thoughtful decision based on the best interest of the children, yes.
And I do think that was the intent of the legislation. Some of those details.
They don't, they don't.
Did we move that resolution, Lisa?
Mike and Ed.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Mike and Ed.
Mike and Ed discussions, yeah. And then,
All in favor? Opposed, so carried. Under old business, we have 3 items is on the agenda. First one, roofing capital project for discussion. Something that I believe we started a little bit, one of our previous meetings. currently in our capital project, we have a recoating of our roof that is anticipated to happen in 2018 when the 10-year warranty is up. I believe they were last recoated in 2007. Currently, those roofs are in place now, going on be almost 30 years. Our current project looks to recoat them for another 15 years, which I think is really stretching it a bit for the roofs that we have. They will be 45 years old when we get to our 15th year of the recoating. Currently, we have some issues as far as leaks and such. We have had infrared studies done, and I'm not sure what the final results of all that. The discussion that I'd like to have with the board is that at some point in time, and I don't know if now is the right time to move forward and look at replacing those roofs with a different type of membrane that would give us, our 20-year warranty, but it would be an entirely new composition of roofing. Something to think about. We can get some information as far as types of roofs that we would replace it with, costs associated with that. Right now, we're looking at 1.2 million.
Between 1.2 and 1.3.
3 is in the budget for that.
In the project.
In the project.
Okay.
The downside to that whole thing is currently there are very, very, very few urethane roof contractors out there. None in the local area. Probably the only one that I know of right now is who we had previously, and we had issues is out of Syracuse. There's no other ones in the immediate area. Any of your other type roofs, your rubber roofs or such, there's many roofing contractors in the immediate area. So I think it's something that if you want to go further and have us do some research, now's the time. We haven't developed any type of plans and specifications yet, moving it forward to 2018. So I just wanted to put it out there. Deborah, if you can think of anything else that...
I think the conversation was weighing the cost of the roof recoating and the, again, this two more years have gone by since it was first approved by the voters, is, as Alan said, is it the best use of district funds? Are we going to get 15 more years out of these roofs, or are we going to find ourselves somewhere in the midway point and we need to do more work? So I think Peter Miller was one of the ones who brought up trying to determine how to make that cost analysis of, a new roof system that, I think it was longer than 20 years.
New ones, you can go longer. You can go to 30, you can go to 40.
If you have a roof.
They're very costly, are they not?
Yes, a new roof that's gonna last 40 years versus recoating that may or may not make it 15, so.
So what do you think we could be looking at?
But even if it made it 10, it pushes it out another decade.
Pushes it out.
Yeah, yeah.
I know there's been a lot of discussion about leaks and all this other stuff, but we don't have the qualitative review coming back. That's something we're gonna approve tonight.
No, it's just discussion.
Would it be significantly more than, like, big bucks?
$1 million building.
It would be, yeah, I would say it would be 2 to 3 million more below that.
Okay, above and beyond the 1.2.
And
But is it, is now the next 2 or 3 years? I'm not saying that we have to do it at year 18. I mean, we could probably buy a couple more years, and it's something that we want to develop into a future plan. and go to the voters in 2020 and do it at that point in time,
I mean, I think that's kind of what we set up when we were talking to the voters about, you know, especially having it reduced from the 25. That this didn't get, it's what we need, it's not necessarily what we want, and we kind of need to live within that range.
Right, absolutely.
And I think
That's
re-engaging,
just talking.
re-engaging our facilities needs committee, or putting it out for people who want to re-engage in that process. To talk about not only that, or if the board decides that's not a conversation we want to have now, some of the other work that is now 2 years older that didn't get done. And I don't know, you noticed it when you were in the library for your pictures. I know we brought it up before that group system in the library seems to be
Correct.
deteriorating. And
Rapidly.
it only had a certain lifespan anyway, so just food for thought that there's, don't want to lose sight of the fact that that 17.5 million only made a small impact, given the large list of things that were originally looked at. That, you know, we can't lose sight of, I don't think we have another 10 years to wait to go back to the voters to address some of the things that are on the list.
If we didn't do anything to the roofs now, decided we were going to do the roofs, okay? So we wouldn't do a what's in the project, right, if we chose to do the roof. Would our roofs hold up as is without us doing anything?
I would say yes. I would think they would.
For
For two,
maybe
three,
4 years,
4
something
years.
like that.
I mean, we can ask Mr. Miller to do make a concentrated effort now to try to pinpoint some of the leaks that are occurring, if there are any, and have them covered on our current warranty, and then hopefully that'll buy us, you know.
Well, like, for example, at the elementary school, we know we've got a leak.
Yeah.
Right, we've talked about that room, we're doing all this stuff. And that is a building that's still covered by warranty, is it
Yes,
not?
he had the warranty company here, I think it was last week.
Okay.
Towards the end of last week, they were there walking the roof, and Peter was showing him the areas of concern. I think some of it based on the infrared study that was done, some of it based on where we are experiencing leaks in the building. So yes, they were here.
And did that area that was identified come up in the infrared study?
I'd have to ask Peter that, because as you know, sometimes where the leak manifests itself is not necessarily where the water's coming in. But there should be some close correlation.
There's some
There
correlation.
should be some correlation.
I'd be interested to see how many, they're doing infrared, so they're looking for cold spots. I'd be interested to see how
wonder if
many
you
per
can
building
follow
were
it.
identified.
Well, they have, it's by, the colors change.
Yes,
I saw the report, but I didn't study it.
but they're looking at blue, 'cause that's cool. I mean, usually with a roof that retains heat, that's where they
Oh,
use
where
infrared.
it would be just the opposite, where with the infrared, where insulation is compromised, you're gonna get the heat loss, so it'll show heat.
So it's
Oh,
red.
interesting.
So where any insulation below the waterproofing membrane, that urethane insulation gets wet, heat loss, and that's how the infrared will show that.
And this study's been done?
Yes,
This study has been done
they
recently.
did it recently with drones,
Oh, okay.
October.
and then we just.
I haven't seen the report.
Yeah.
That's something we wanna see, maybe we can get a.
I gave my copy to the CM, but Peter has his.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Look
And
forward to
ask
it.
him to include some of that maybe in his next director's report, which would be in early January.
And in the current project with our new mechanical systems, there are gonna be some new penetrations on the existing roof for new rooftop units and such, so they have to be flash and waterproof and such, so that's gonna occur regardless. All right,
It's kind of funny we're talking about roofing and replacing possibly roofing and whatever we're gonna do on the project. And our next item up is a quality review and some of the situations that they might be reviewing and talking about, which could be cause of some of these issues, you know, air quality review. Could be roofing related.
Yes, I posted.
Think about it, you
I
know.
think that's why we started talking about at the list.
Yeah, I'm just saying, now we're, get the study done, don't get, take some cautionary measures associated with how to possibly fix and deal with things.
Well,
If we don't,
I mean, there's different methods of dealing with things too. I understand the urge to wanna rip out and go through some of these newer membranes and stuff, but we also have parameters that we're trying to live within also.
I know that, it's
Yeah.
just, so. Yeah.
Okay, Quest Environmental Solutions and Technology, don't get this confused with Quest Urgent Health. Health Quest. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the following proposal from Quest Environmental Solutions and Technologies, Inc. to conduct indoor environmental quality reviews in an amount not to exceed $38,750. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Sue, second by Heather. Discussion?
Yes, what buildings does that entail?
The elementary, middle, and high school.
And why doesn't that include the bus area?
We didn't have, when we met with people, that was the one building that we didn't have any complaints about. Although, maybe the office spaces, I could ask him to give us a,
I was just gonna say, yes,
for that price.
Yeah.
We wanted to take a look
Yeah.
at those, where, because you've got the bus garage and you've got the offices where the transportation staff is on one side of that garage, and then on the other side, there's an office space for the mechanics, and then on the other side of that is Mr. Miller's office space. So I could talk to him about that.
Right. Just because, you're housed here in the high school, you're not in a separate administrative center, so even all office spaces are gonna be reviewed. I don't necessarily wanna exclude any.
No, and it wasn't
And for that kind of money, I'm hoping they could work with us.
Yes,
Yes,
I
I
believe
think
they
he's
will.
got some,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he did, as you saw in the proposal, there's a certain amount of money that they budgeted, I think it's around between $12,000 and $13,000 for testing of different natures, so they may or may not need to do that, but I will talk to Ken tomorrow about adding those 2 office spaces for the same price.
We have employees. Thank you.
And it's a pretty comprehensive,
You don't get much
review.
more comprehensive than this. You don't see this often in our business, especially when, and I hope the staff understands that, you don't see this.
I believe,
Especially when incidental reviews don't really yield any major results.
well, I think in order to reassure those who have a high level of concern, and honestly.
Including ourselves. Yes, this is a very human need right now.
For all staff and students, if there's ways that we can improve the environment that they spend anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day in, but.
And I would say that the staff is very appreciative.
Yes.
I mean, all the feedback that we've gotten, that we're getting from people is they're very, they understand.
It's like, we'll bronze the results
Yeah.
and put them up, so when they're in, a couple of years, when they're like, there they are.
I think that Mr. Rizzo was at our last board meeting to express the HTA's appreciation for our prompt response to the concerns, and I've had that same feedback from the other units as well. They were pleased with the district's prompt response to the concerns and the fact that we're going to take it one step further and really delve into what we can do to, as a school community, to improve our school environment.
What did we currently pay to Quest for the initial,
I don't think they've billed us yet, have they?
I don't think they've built this yet
He
either,
gave
but
me
there
an-
was a quote
he
for
gave me a-
preliminary.
$9 grand?
He had
I think 9 is, I'm sorry, but I think 9 is about right, Alan.
He had given us an initial proposal to do just the elementary school
It's got
review, and that was
10,000 built.
$8,900. So when we asked them to do all three, I asked them if that would give us a better price. And it did, slightly.
Well, about
But-
3 times 9 is 27.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. I don't know if you
It's
have.
the testing and all the documents that go with it, right?
And then, but for what he has what they've already done to date, I think he said it was about 24 to 2,500.
My question, I think my concern, I mean, 38,000 is a lot, and
A lot of
it's an
money.
estimate right now, it's not definite.
Yeah, right.
It could
Sure. Not
open
to
up,
exceed.
the need for the district to do a lot more. I feel we've been proactive, we addressed the concerns of staff, we corrected the situations at the initial testing that was done at the elementary school, because that was where the issues arose. And we spent additional monies for asbestos abatement. We will be. We did duct cleaning from a professional. So we did a lot that had to be done. I don't, I'm not sure if we have to pursue it to this magnitude at all 3 buildings and including the bus.
Well, I think that if we don't, we'll take a big, I understand the concern about the expense, but I think in looking at the list of concerns that staff had, Sarah put together a spreadsheet. I think that in order to address all of those and to
No, I
really,
agree.
to maintain the confidence, I think that.
I think we've got to follow through on our commitments, I understand,
No,
you're very
I-
knowledgeable in this field, we all have an idea of how this is gonna come out.
I guess from where I come from, and I think we all should do the same thing, even in your own home. If you got a roof leak, you're gonna go to one roofer and say, give me a price, and tell you $20,000, all right, I'll do it. No, I think we can explore, and competition is always good for business. And there are other mold remediation companies and testing companies out there. Yet, we were at a situation where we needed some immediate answers, and we went to Quest and we got it. I know the conversation we had with them, that I was involved with, that $9,000 was kind of a gauge to where all 3 buildings would come into, and we thought it would be a little cheaper, but yet it went from multiplying 9 times 3 to, $12,000 greater. I just think it's a lot of money.
Louis, how are we fixed to afford this unanticipated expense?
We plan for certain things like this.
So it's into the budget.
Yeah,
You
it
could-
is in the budget. There is
You can't,
that
you don't
level of,
You're not required, and I think that, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, there are 2, it's a professional service, there's no requirement to go out for bid.
They're the authority in the area, you know that, you know they're the authority
Well,
in the
I
area.
think we could have done an RFP if it was something we talked about just doing on an ordinary basis. I think this is something that was a heightened awareness, and
Right. That's
there's
why
no
we pulled it.
requirement, I completely
And I-
did
Right,
that.
you're absolutely right.
You won't see
People
probably
have
anything this
confidence.
extensive again, unless, of course, the results warrant.
Don't know, we might have something that
We're there,
we're not
listen,
aware of.
this is the learning and work environment for 2,000 people every single day. So that's another thing.
Are we doing this contract through BOCES?
I've spoken to
Because will it get any money back?
I've spoken to Dr. Corey, we actually discussed this at our last superintendent's meeting, which was last Thursday, and Dr. Corey shared with the group that he was present for Ken X's presentation, and he thought it was one of the best he's ever heard. We do have some other districts that might be interested in doing some kind of similar service, but would be under the auspices of their health and safety office. To date, I don't know if there's been anyone else who has expressed interest.
Oh, so we would have to have other districts?
have to have
We can't
one
just do a standalone?
No, in order,
Shared service.
in order for it to be BOCES out.
Okay, see, I misunderstood, because I remember
a doctor talking about this, I was saying, oh, we should do
Now,
all of
we
our
need to have a
contracts.
partner, we need to have a partner, and I did talk to a
Okay,
couple of
okay.
my colleagues, I don't
Okay.
know if any of them are going to engage the services of
Okay.
Quest for something similar, but, it's a possibility, and it could be that before we're all done with this process, that,
Because that's where we could save
yes,
the money out.
we could get a percentage back
Yeah.
on the service, so I'll keep talking to my colleagues to see if anyone else is experiencing similar concerns, and
No, I think, you know, like Mike first said, you know, can we get them to include, the bus compound in that? And maybe Louise, you can do a little of your negotiation. I know it's not to exceed on
It is
the
not to
testing, but I mean, I think we're gonna pay the 25,000
Yeah.
and the 13,000 is gonna be not to exceed. Hopefully it doesn't, but,
when-
then the other side of this whole thing is, what if?
Yeah.
You don't know.
when they were here, and again, this is just the first observation, and I don't know that I'm not gonna say that it's gonna carry through all of their work, but he did not appear to be anxious to take samples of everything that was
Right.
pointed
Yeah, no.
out. And he was like, no, this looks like it might need to be that, no. So I think we should absolutely try to get more included and maybe get the price reduced, but
Let's put it to vote. We've killed it.
All right,
All right.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And the last item under old business, be it resolved, the Board of Education upon recommendation of Superintendent of Schools approves the contract between Highland Central School District and Health Quest Urgent Medical Care Practice PC as presented to the board at this meeting. Motion, please. Sue, second. Heather, discussion?
So is this for, or is it,
This
it
would-
has to have emergency treatment, is that what this is?
this is for
Sports-
like
sports-
school physicals.
Sports-
Oh, okay.
Our
Okay,
nurses
Yes,
might have
sorry.
questions if we needed a medical
Concussion
opinion.
protocol.
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
It's their overall services
Mhm.
for the school year, and as you may recall, the first time we got the document, our legal counsel had asked them to make some revisions. They sent it back to us without the revision, so it's been back and forth
Yeah.
several times.
I think it's 4,000 flat fee and then per,
15.
so much per student.
Yeah,
For each, per physical.
So this is the revised.
Is this represented by Stratton?
No, we have been using,
First year.
First Care.
Oh, first year.
We have been sending them to the workplace in Poughkeepsie, but we've
Yeah,
shifted that
just
Yeah.
come to first
They
to
do.
using a local,
Absolutely.
a local provider.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
I have one final question for Louise, and this goes back to Jody's presentation and your comment in regard to the federal money. And you know, when Mike said it was about $1 million, I thought it was about $1.2 million because I always look at the special aid fund. So is
You
the
know what, I
Title
can look
1A?
I think the title, it does come up to closer to $1 million, but there are two grants that we really don't get any money from. They come to us and we send the money on to, other providers, it's not our money.
It's the flow through.
But I can't remember, who do we send
It's
the
a
money to?
611, 619, it's the.
Yeah, it's, all of the residential placements where some of our special ed students are placed in, we get, I'm gonna say the old days, there was a time where the federal government paid those organizations directly, and now they pass it through. So we may get a couple $100,000 that comes in and we pay it right out based on the placements of those children.
So
They were like the
then,
program.
so I should just focus on the two top lines, the Title 1A and the Title 2A? Is that the federal?
Yeah, I'm
So
going
that's-
there.
There's a whole list she
There's
has.
a list at the title.
So am I looking at this right?
I'm sorry, you know what,
Oh, you're
so
looking at the revenue.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at it
well,
now.
that's 'cause-
It
yeah,
is-
no,
it
that's,
is $1
yeah,
million.
it's $472,000.
And then this, okay, so it's,
And then your, Title II is $338,000.
I'm gonna just take the $1.4 million and back out the summer handicap. So it's like $1 million, it looks like it's $1.2 million. What I can't tell is how much of this was carried over from the prior year.
She's looking at the revenue.
I'm just, yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
what you
She's
said,
looking at the revenue. This is all, so I just went to the revenue.
yeah, she just went to the revenue to see what the full budget is. I just wanna make sure I understand.
No,
And
I
it's not
misspoke, it is absolutely, closer to $1 million. The LAP grant is non-repetitive generally, and the summer handicap you would not count in there, because those are not
So this is-
recurring grants.
Right here, so it's right here. Okay, okay, so it's Fed, this is the Fed. Oh, okay, except like you said that one's not. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay?
Good.
Anything for the good welfare of the
Trying to
district?
learn.
Open the meeting up to,
Yes,
Public
happy
comment?
Hanukkah, Merry Christmas.
no public comment?
Happy holidays.
Good public comment, I like it.
And a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Mike, second by Heather. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried.
Hot chocolate? No, but I think we have to start demanding tea. It's better to
How do you sleep if you have tea?
Nope, that's not.